Update. I, 32, female, work overnights, but my father-in-law, 60s male, keeps bad-mouthing me and telling everyone I'm lazy. I'm afraid people are starting to buy it. Original story. I work overnights in a very demanding medical field. My sleep schedule has always been nocturnal, so this feels more natural to me than working days and brings my stress down. My husband is gone 5 days out of the week as a truck driver, and my days off are the same days as home, thanks to my seniority, and we are both night owls during this period. My mother-in-law recently passed away, so my father-in-law sold everything and moved to where we were. It has been included in my family events. At Christmas, my brother pulled me aside to let me know that my father-in-law is telling anyone who will listen that I'm lazy because I sleep all day. I work 12 to 24-hour shifts at my job during the days I'm working. The only reason I get my days off to align with my husband is the seniority I have, and even then I often have to work when he's home. I've now noticed that, along with him calling me, I am starting to miss calls around 2 to 3 p.m. from family members who know I'm home and are asking me to do things for them during the day. I'm usually asleep by noon and have to be up for work around 8 or 9 p.m. I've sat these people down to explain that I am an overnight emergency worker and that I need my sleep. My husband sat my father-in-law down and explained to him what I do, how I need my sleep, and that he's being a jerk. But my father-in-law maintains that a real job doesn't have overnights. I don't want to have to cut contact with him because we are the only family he has left. My husband stands behind me and says if I want to cut him out, even just to let him have a timeout, he's game. I also don't know how to address my whole family about this. My mom combats it as much as possible, but his way of thinking is starting to permeate them too. Now for the top advice before reading the update. I work nights, and I just return calls at 2 and 3 a.m. when it's convenient for me. They catch on. Think it's time for Opie to have a bring your child father-in-law to work day. This is exactly what I was thinking. Have him do some clinicals by your side. Let him see that you are indeed working the hours that he is sleeping. I'm not in the medical field, but I'm pretty sure this would be super weird, if it's even allowed. Doubtful. I know if I'm at a hospital and some doctor/nurse was like, "Do you mind if I bring in my father-in-law?" Oh no, he's not medical personnel. He's just a trash talker. I don't want to prove a point to him. Now please take off your pants. I'd be like, WTF. Start bringing father-in-law in at 2 or 3 in the morning and ask him why he isn't up yet. Tell him he's lazy for sleeping when you're at work. When it tells you you're being ridiculous, respond accordingly. Mom worked nights when I was a kid. Dad called Mom a few times while he was on lunch, waking her up. So she returned the favor and Dad figured it out immediately. Since Mom and Grandpa were both on nights during their careers, a benefit from them training our family. Also, do not disturb is a fantastic thing on smartphones. Only 7 people can ring me during hours I set. They know not to call unless it's important. I use my phone as an alarm clock so I can't just leave it in another room. I'm happy that your husband is on your side. Don't feel bad for your father-in-law when it doesn't feel bad for you. He needs to move out ASAP. Also, it's not your job to do anyone's errands. Ask these people that when the heck are you supposed to sleep if you work from X to Y? I'm petty, so I would call them in the middle of the night. Surely not everyone in your family is dumb. I wouldn't worry about it. I work from home. The amount of errands I got asked to do because you're not busy was insane, until I put a stop to it. I guarantee father-in-law's telling the family she's just being idle. There are people who will see an opportunity. And now for the update. Hey all. I dealt with my family members at a family gathering over the weekend. I saw my sister, one of my family members who had been texting me, and reminded her that I'm asleep at 3 or 4 p.m. when she texts. If she texts me first thing in the morning, like when she leaves for work at 7, maybe I could do whatever favor she needs before I go to sleep. I told her that I wouldn't be adjusting my schedule to do her favors. She seemed to understand. Over the weekend, my husband and I sat down with my father-in-law one last time to try to get him to understand that I'm a medical professional. I work nights and that my nights are as hard as working a day shift, oftentimes harder. I brought up my mother-in-law and reminded him how she called 911 at 2 a.m. when she had her first heart attack. I told him the person on the other end of that phone had a real job. The EMTs who came to take her to the hospital had real jobs, and the ear nurses and doctors that treated her had real jobs. I told him that yes, I could take a day shift, but I would be unhappy in the end because I'm just not wired to be awake during the day. Today is an exception because I'm on vacation and had a dentist appointment. Well, those who guessed that this was way more about my job were right. After the discussion, He point-blank told me that my chosen hours weren't conducive to having children. When I reminded him that when his son and I got married 10 years ago, we both agreed that we weren't having children. He had some choice words. My husband kicked him out of our house and my family will stop inviting him to family gatherings. It's not the outcome I wanted, but hopefully it'll come around. Edit. To be clear, he did not live with us, but near us. My husband kicked him out of our house that evening. Heart attack. Genius. My husband kicked him out of our house and my family will stop inviting him to family gatherings. Good work. And welcome to r/child-free. As soon as I got married, both sides of the family started incessantly badgering us about kids. Are they offering to babysit to take care of our home? Of course not. I'll have kids when I get tired of having freedom and money. One of my daughters doesn't want to have kids. I see the static she gets sometimes and it pisses me off. What is wrong with people? If someone doesn't want kids, they should not have them. Having kids when you don't want them is the worst thing you can do. I agree. A lot of people shouldn't have kids, and yet so many people legitimately think women's sole purpose in life is to reproduce, and that we will not and cannot be happy if we don't. Thanks for the update. I think you and your husband handled it perfectly. Your job. It was always something more than the job. Nighttime medical shift work is the hardest job in the hospital. He sounds like a massive jerk who needs to keep his nose in his own business. Glad your husband stood up for you. Raised in a household where one parent worked days and the other nights. There's always someone home and always someone to pick up the kid. That's exactly why my parents did it. That's how me and my husband do it. I work days and he works evenings/weekends. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than $800+ per month in childcare, and she gets to be with her dad all day. Happy ending to an awful father-in-law. I'm not defending the dude, and he certainly has no right to treat family this way, but it's possible with the loss of his wife, having thoughts of getting old, and having no grandkids from his son has clouded his thought process. Grieving sucks, and can do weird things to your brain. It might be on his mind, but the words that came out of his mouth towards me when we reminded him we weren't having kids were absolutely unacceptable. He called me a lot of different names, including a racial slur. I'm mixed race, and he has never shown any sort of racism before. I hope he's just clouded and genuinely apologizes. I don't believe he's a bad person. Maybe just hurting. Next story is titled, My father-in-law, 47, has a terminal illness, and he propositioned me, 29 female. Myself and my husband have been together for 11 years and married 7. I wish this wasn't true. My father-in-law has been stepdad since he was 8, and my mother-in-law separated 2 years ago because he has been messaging other women, younger ones for context, like mid to late 20s. It was rough for a while, but everything has been okay, and relationships have been repaired. He is a great dad to my husband, and an amazing granddad to our kid and our extended family. His bio family are amazing people, and we've never been treated as anything other than blood. We're all extremely close, and it's a big family. That's what makes this harder. I've never felt creeped out by him, even though I knew this thing for younger women, but he's always been very respectful to me and treated me like a daughter. I and my husband were obviously extremely shocked and disappointed in him, and it took time to work through my husband and his relationship, but he made a huge effort to repair it and prove himself again. He has just had a diagnosis which gives him a few months. I don't want to go into detail for anonymity reasons. I went to see him before my husband got home from work and while my daughter was still in school to check on him. He gave me all the awful details, and we cried, etc. He told me it's sad he won't see his granddaughter grow up, his son grow older, and all his regrets. Then he told me he needed to tell me that he has always been attracted to me, and if I would agree to have one night with him as his dying wish. He said he isn't going to be able to meet anyone he's been hoping to, and hasn't had action since mother-in-law, and it would mean everything to him. I shut down. I know I should have said or done something, but I felt sick to my stomach, excused myself, and ran the heck out of there. I'm now at home wondering how do I handle this, and when/if/how I tell my husband. He's wondering why I'm not reacting to the bad news, and I've just said I'm still in shock. But obviously I feel disgusted by him and don't ever want to see him again. Do I ruin the only dad he's ever known for him and make the already impossible situation even worse? Lose all of our family? I'm so scared and confused. I've never seen him act like this or treat me this way. His relationship with my mother-in-law isn't the best, and his bio dad has never cared about him. He doesn't see his siblings. The family we have are my father-in-law's and my family, who are great. Anyone know how I deal with this crap show? Now for the advice. Tell your husband right now or this will eat you up. Otherwise, as you seem indifferent to dad's dying, it'll make him think you are some kind of cold, heartless person. It could destroy your marriage. To make it even simpler, someone did something awful to you, and your husband's job is to make you feel better. And again, you can't keep the secret forever. And if it comes out after the old bugger is dead, your husband will always wonder what dad's side of the story was. There are so many downsides to keeping quiet. And remember, you aren't ruining anything. He is. Thank you, you're right. Also, dying is not an excuse to do awful things. If anything, this person does not care at all to ruin yours and his own son's marriage, and then punch out. This isn't something you can really carry with you secretly without there being serious complications. You should tell your husband. As for ruining the relationship, no you didn't. Your father-in-law did that when he made a pass at you. I've carried a similar burden for 40 years. Tell him. I could honestly say so much. Do I ruin the only dad he's ever known for him and make the already impossible situation even worse? Your father-in-law managed that all by himself when he propositioned you. Tell your husband. And be prepared to support him throughout the fallout because I imagine it'll be immense. I'm so sorry you're having to deal with this. Exactly. I know how hard this will be on him. And getting the news this morning. It's going to break him. I guess I'm trying to figure out how to tell someone you love something that is going to change their whole perspective on a relationship they have that means everything. Ah, freaking heck. Is this disease anyway affecting his mental faculties? Bearing that, there isn't any excuse and the former is flimsy to begin with. First, your husband needs to know. Sooner rather than later. And you need the support he can give. Your father-in-law is solely responsible for any damage or fallout this may cause. It isn't. I wish that was it. Then at least it's an explanation of some kind. I'm going to tell him and we can grab some time without our daughter. I'm just scared. Thank you. Now for the last story. I am tired of being a married single mother. I am tired of being a single mother instead of a married mother, as my husband currently acts like my fifth child instead of a capable adult. When we met, he was a lovable and kind man. But now it seems as though he thinks I'm his personal maid, and that all child rearing and household burdens are mine. I've tried talking to him, and nothing comes out of it. It's as if a married and energy vampire sucks all the life energy out of me. I work full-time, do all the domestic chores, all the child-related chores, and every time I ask him to do something, he purposely messes it up, or just doesn't do it. Our son's birthday was almost 2 weeks ago, and all I asked him was to pick up his birthday cake and candles. He literally was with me the day I ordered it at the bakery, but yet I still texted him the bakery's address and the name the order was under. He went to the wrong bakery. I decided to argue with the staff that they clearly messed up and ruined his kid's birthday. At some point, he decided to call me to complain of the deserved, horrible treatment he got from staff. I explained he was at the wrong store and to hurry up before the bakery closed. My son was standing next to me, and I could see he was genuinely anxious of not at least getting his birthday cake. Since we aren't having a party for him, we aren't having any parties as we are still adhering to strict COVID restrictions. I decided to pick the cake up, since I couldn't trust him to make it on time as it was close to the bakery's closing time, so we could still have a small little party with the rest of the household. But I realized that this isn't the first or 100th time this man has messed things up. I'm always the one the kids turn to. The one who is expected to know where everything is, when it should be done. I'm the one to fix it, or to worry about whatever is wrong. He just gets to smile, laugh with the kids, and I'm left with all the worries. I was so angry that he got to play with kids, while I was stuck running around cleaning, cooking, and making all the plans. He just gets to take credit. I can't seem to get over it, and I don't want to get over it. I feel used, neglected, and over-freaking worked. I feel alone. Every other day he talks about how hard he works, and yet it doesn't even measure up to half of what I do. He wakes up in the morning and only worries about getting himself dressed, whether he should go to the gym or what he's having for breakfast. I wake up to getting the kids showered, clothed, then I get them their breakfast and lunch is packed. The only thing he does regularly is drop the kids off 2, or if I'm lucky, 3 times a week. While I am left with cleaning the house and then getting myself ready, and even checking in on his elderly parents while I drive to work. And when I'm back from work, he's sitting there waiting for me to make dinner, to help the children with their homework, then clean up, do the laundry, and put the kids to bed. I am so freaking tired. Gun to his head, he wouldn't know the names of the kids' teachers, their best friends, their friends' parents, the doctors, dentists, their tutors or babysitters' phone numbers, his parents' doctors, their medicine, or their caregiver's phone number/working hours. He gets to just exist and without worry, without exhaustion, and I'm so tired of complaining. So tired of crying. So tired. I don't know why I wrote all of this. Maybe I wanted to vent into the vastness of the internet. Maybe I wanted advice. Maybe I am just tired of being miserable on my own. Please Google weaponized incompetence if you're not already familiar. This is exactly what your husband is doing. He can definitely do basic chores and remember basic things, but he knows he can act like an idiot and you'll pick up the slack for him. In my experience, people like this hardly change. What is keeping you in this marriage? It's not like you suddenly became a crappy partner. It was slow, gradual, and before I knew it, it was my job to manage and do everything for our family. All bad things, forgetting to remind kids of their activities, not doing XYZ for the kids, not real bad things, are my fault. And all good things are due to our efforts even though it was me who made it happen. He gets to be the relaxed parent while I'm forced to be the one that gives the kids a routine and structure. So of course I'm the bad guy for making the kids go to bed, brush their teeth, etc. I didn't just wake up one day to be in this position. It took a lot of time. I spent the majority of my childhood in foster care, without family and then to be abused by the people who adopted me. I had always hoped and promised myself I would offer my kids everything a child deserved to have. And one of those things is that they are to be part of the two people that created them. To know them, to be loved and cared by them. My reluctance to have a failed marriage since he doesn't physically or financially abuse me. Being mistreated and abandoned as a child can oftentimes leave you with a very low bar. To give my children the family unit I never had. But at this point, I don't even think they'd mind us separating. He loves his children even though he doesn't raise them. And in many ways, I do love him since he was the first man I got to be safe with. But honestly, love is not enough to sustain a marriage, a family, or a household. I'm fairly certain that divorce is on the table, and I believe that I'm at the stage where I'm mentally preparing myself before I act.
This is the second update of story about the young girl who was excluded and uninvited from her parents' wedding. Link in the description for the first part of this saga. Now for the update. Sorry for not having re-updated sooner or commented. As you can imagine if you've seen my last posts, it's been a busy week to say the least. There's been a lot of people messaging me and commenting on the post, and I haven't had a time to answer to one until today, and I'm sorry for that. You all have been so helpful and caring for me and my story, and it's been truly eye-opening and terrifying to see how many people have gone through similar stories of neglect and abuse. And I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to send some kind words to this internet stranger. This update will be long, so sorry for that. I'm just going to continue where I left off. So my grandma called me to tell me she was coming here to see me and help me out. I was very stressed about it, because my grandma has a very hard time traveling. So for her to take this trip meant that she would be under enormous stress, and I felt responsible for her since I was the one that called her. She arrived early Monday morning with my uncle and I went to get her at the airport. Not gonna lie, it was a very intense and emotional moment, and as soon as I saw her, I ran to her arms and broke down sobbing. I don't even know if I was able to tell her anything at that moment because of how hard I was crying, and I had so many things to say. Thank you for coming, for being so good to me, for having my back. I'm sorry I have made you take this trip. I feel awful at home. I don't know if my parents love me, but I know you do. Am I an affair child? I truly was hit with all of this, plus the guilt and the anxiety all at once when I saw her. But she held me tight in her arms, telling me everything's going to be okay. My uncle hugged us as well. I don't know how long we stayed like this, but it must have been a while until my uncle told me we should get going. We grabbed a cab and went to their hotel. My grandma had teary eyes and I could feel her breathing heavily, which scared me, but she kept hugging me and smiling all the way. She had reserved a double room so I could stay with her for these days, and once they were settled in and I was more calm, we sat down and I poured everything out for them. The years of neglect and the emotional abuse, how I was feeling miserable after the trip but also for years now, how my parents have been trying to make me feel guilty for all of this that has happened, how I was scared about my future, but my number one priority at the moment now was to move out of that house, even at the expense of my schoolwork. How I have made arrangements to move in with my friend and I was looking for a job. I told them about this post and how some people thought I might be an affair child and that I was beginning to question that as well. It was a lot, and I could tell they were both really affected by what I was saying, but they kept comforting me and making me feel safe to open up to them. After I unloaded all my concerns with them, my grandma reassured me that I had nothing to worry about anymore and that she would be here for me always. First of all, she reassured me that I was not an affair child and that both my parents were thrilled when my mother got pregnant with me, and that she knew the ultimate deal breaker for my mom was cheating, and she believed it was the same for my father. Apparently, the favoritism began showing when I was around 3 to 4 years old, when my parents were constantly complaining about having a young kid in the house. And they were bothered because they could take my older siblings to their stuff but not me, and I was also very shy and a bit of a crybaby, which they had no patience with, and made me very different from my siblings. She told me that she knew that my parents had saved more than enough for my college. They're really well off, so that had never been a concern for me until now, thinking they might pull the funds away from me for my education, but that if they tried to not pay for my schooling, she would take care of it, and that she just wouldn't let me drop out because of money concerns. She also told me she would help me with rent and an allowance to move out. She was very generous, and I thanked her for it all, but I also told her that this experience had been eye-opening, in the sense that I never realized how privileged I had been economically all my life. For all of their faults, my parents have pampered me money-wise all my life. I went to private school. I have a rather large monthly allowance. I've had a card for years now, and they have never objected to any of my expenses. Seeing the stories here, I realized how good I've had it so far, and how being dependent on them all my life made me so exposed to losing everything. I want to be independent now, not just from my parents but from everyone. I feel like I need to learn to stand up on my own. Writing this and having just read all the stories of people in truly awful situations makes me feel like I've been a spoiled brat all my life, to be honest. She insisted on me accepting the help until I don't need it anymore, and I accepted that. But I still will look for a job and try to make it out on my own. We relaxed for a while in the hotel because we were all exhausted from the morning, but in the afternoon, we grabbed a cab and went to my house. My parents were extremely surprised to see my grandma and uncle with me when I entered the door. But before they could say anything, my grandma told me to go pack all my essentials while they talked to them. I rushed upstairs and I could hear my grandma and uncle berating my parents for all that they had put me through. At first, I also heard my parents trying to defend themselves, but eventually they quieted down. When I came downstairs with 2 suitcases and my backpack full to the brim with everything important that I had in my room, they were all in the living room. My father was beet red and my mother was sobbing like a child. And when she saw me, she extended her arms in my direction saying she was sorry, but I just said, "Save it," with the coldest tone I could muster. My dad said that I didn't have to be a jerk, to which both my uncle and grandma told him to shut up. I left the house at that moment and waited for the cab outside. In the hotel, my grandma reassured me that I wouldn't have to go back to them, and that they told her my college tuition was never in question for them, and that they had planned to throw me an extravagant birthday party to make up for the wedding mess, and were going to be giving me a car as an apology for everything. But my grandma was having none of that BS, because it was pretty obvious to her that they were only trying to save face, and they were coming up with these things on the fly, and that a party and a car would not make up for all that they have put me through. Apparently, the moment that broke my mother was when she told her that I had even questioned my paternity, and she started crying then. My grandma told her that what else could they expect when they had excluded me repeatedly from all family events since I was a child. She told me that she would make sure they made the payments to my school, unless I preferred to completely cut ties with them and have her pay until I can pay myself, and I asked her to do that. I felt bad because I feel like it's not her responsibility. But I truly don't want anything else from my parents anymore. And although my grandma is pretty well off herself, she's not as wealthy as my parents. But she reassured me that everything is alright, and that everything going to me would be taken away from my mom's inheritance. So the next day, we went with my friend, her parents, and grandma to the studio where we were planning to move, and immediately upon arriving, my grandma said, "Absolutely not." I knew from the pictures that the studio was very, very small and dirty, but we saw water damage and mold in the bathroom and kitchenette, and there was also rust in the little old appliances. I knew all of this beforehand, but I figured I could live with that, at least for a while. But the thing that the adults pointed out that actually made me and my friend change our minds was the fact that the studio was street level in a bad neighborhood, in a building that didn't seem particularly safe, and had bullet holes on the walls, which I didn't even know what those were until my friend's dad pointed it out. So Grandma and my friend's parents said they would look for an apartment for us in a better location and they'd help cover the costs. Both my friend and I want to be independent, but we realize that with our most likely minimum wage jobs in such a high demand area, we won't be able to find anything better on our own. So the plan is, we're going to look for a 2-bedroom apartment, and me and my friend are going to pay what we had previously planned for the studio, and our parents and my grandma will cover the difference. I know it's still quite spoiled of me to expect that help from my grandma, but after seeing the studio in person, I truly wouldn't have felt safe there. My friend's parents, who were somewhat aware of what I was going through, told me that I could move in with them until we find a nice apartment, to which I'm extremely grateful since Grandma's going back in a couple of days and I've been staying in the hotel with her ever since. Apparently, my friend, her parents, and my grandma spoke about this before coming to me to make sure I had some safe place to stay until we move into the apartment, which is still to be found. I teared up a little as I thanked them, seeing how people were rallying behind me to offer help. Since then, I've been moving some of the stuff I had left at my parents' and setting my space in my friends'. My mom keeps crying and apologizing every time I go back, and even my father has said sorry, but I remain distant and cold towards them. My sister called and said that our mother was a mess, and that I was a prick for what I had done, but before she could say anything else, I hanged up the phone and blocked her. I was going to block my brother as well when I saw that he had sent me a very long message apologizing again and again for all that he has done to me, and for not realizing our parents were treating me so poorly. He says he's been doing a lot of self-reflection on the days since Grandma called and realized that he had been in the wrong for assuming that I wasn't on the trip because I wouldn't want to go, and for just allowing my parents to exclude me for all those years. I sent a brief reply thanking him for his words, but telling him I need space and I was not ready to accept his apology. I feel like he might be genuine because he has never been nasty to me the way my sister has, just aloof towards me, but I also feel like I need to keep him away for the moment. Also, keeping a bridge up with my family feels like the right thing to do right now that everything is so fresh. Maybe in the future he will show me he's just as nasty as everyone else and I block him. But as long as he respects my boundaries, I feel better not cutting him off completely. I've also made an appointment with a therapist who specializes in neglected teens, and I have my first preliminary visit next week. Again, funded by my grandma, which makes me feel ever more eager to find a job ASAP to take the burden off of her, even if she tells me time and time again she is happy to do all of this for me. That's where things stand right now. I don't know if I'll update again, maybe when I start classes or move to the apartment. But right now, I'm just trying to enjoy some time with my grandma and my uncle and learn to grow and get rid of these feelings of guilt and depression that have been plaguing me for so long. I want to thank once again all of this community for being so nice and helpful to me, and all of you who have messaged me with your own personal stories of getting kicked out or having to learn how to make it on your own at a too early age. You've helped me feel a lot less alone and made me realize that things can get better if I work hard for it. I feel kind of spoiled for having such an amazing support system on my grandma, uncles, and my friend, but you all guys are right. Reaching out has been the absolute best decision I could have taken. And opening up about my feelings to those who love me and to all of you internet friends has absolutely saved me. So thank you. Really, I'm more grateful than words can ever tell. Now for some comments. This tale so far has been one where all I can say is, go grandma! Wish I had her on my side. Mine crucified me. I really hope the next update is one of reconciliation and family coming together, as I am so burnt out with the nastiness of things like this. Wishing you only the best, OP. I'm curious, when you've gone back to collect things, what exactly have your parents been saying? You mentioned they were apologizing, but is it more along the lines of, "I'm sorry, forgive me," or are they specifically saying, "I'm sorry for XYZ"? I'm just trying to figure out if they're apologizing because they were called out by your grandma, or if they genuinely recognize their own mistreatment. It may not matter right now, but understanding this could be important if there is any hope of salvaging the relationship in the future. My mother has been crying every time I've gone there, and just saying I'm sorry over and over again. But I haven't had a conversation with her, so she hasn't mentioned specifics. But I also haven't given her a chance. My father has been mostly silent, staring at me whenever I come and go, but when he apologized, it was more along the lines of, "I'm sorry for everything," than bringing any wrongdoing for his part in anything. I don't know if they are shocked right now by everything that's happening and haven't had time to process. I myself feel overwhelmed. Or if they don't think they've done anything wrong and are just acting for grandma. I don't know myself, so I can't really answer. Last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my parents out and saying this is why I was so messed up as a kid? I had my parents in their 60s over for dinner this weekend, and after, my daughter 10 asked if she could play us a song she had been practicing on her keyboard. She gets lessons. It wasn't perfect. A few missed notes, a couple pauses, but she did really well. She looked up at the end, massive smile, and I started clapping. And my parents started freaking laughing. Not just a little chuckle, a massive freaking belly laugh. Them both. My mom asked if it was her first time playing it, and my dad said it had to have been. It all could have played that better. It was like my daughter was shrinking on the spot, and she looked down and said, "No, I've had 2 lessons, but doing it with 2 hands is hard." And they just laughed even freaking harder. I just stood up, took their cups, and said leave. Now, my mom tried to say about how they hadn't finished their drinks, they wanted to hear another song, etc. And I just said, "Get your stuff and get the heck out of my house right now." My dad started doing this huffing thing he does when someone dares to speak up to him. And my mom said that there was no need to be like this, that I can't protect her all the time, and she's preparing my daughter for the real world. I said, it's not teaching the real world, they're just nasty little bullies picking on children, and crap like this was why I was so messed up as a kid. Now leave. They got their stuff and left. I sat with my daughter and explained how proud of her I was and how well she was doing. To ignore them, they were just being cruel because they don't know any other way to be, and asked if she could please play it again, which she did. On the Sunday, I messaged and said that until they can behave like decent human beings, that we're taking a break away from them. My dad replied that it was my choice, but he didn't realize he raised me to be so precious. Now, my lovely brown-nosing golden child of a sister is getting involved. She phoned me today with my parents' versions of events, telling me I was a nasty piece of work and should never speak to my parents that way. That I'm wrapping my child in cotton wool and blah blah blah. I just told her to go F herself and hung up. I'm not asking if I am in the wrong for standing up for my daughter. I'll always do that. But I did go pretty 0 to 100. I kicked them out straight away. I swore at them and in front of my daughter. I did raise my voice at the end when I said leave. I was and still am angry. I don't think I'd even accept an apology from them at this point. This behavior isn't new, it's decades old. But this is the first time it affected my daughter. Did I go too far? React too much? Should I have tried to be calmer? Talk it out? I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Lots of people think I'm a mom. Nope. Single dad. Not a-hole. Your daughter is never going to forget you standing up for her. Not a-hole. Absolutely correct. She'll see you as an ally in life now. She'll also realize that it's okay to not accept people being awful to you. 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up for your parenting. Yes, OP is not the a-hole. You stood up for your daughter and protected her from cruel, unnecessary comments. Your reaction was wrong, but it's understandable given your parents' long history of hurtful behavior. You're breaking the cycle and prioritizing your daughter's well-being. There's no need to tolerate that kind of treatment, especially when it impacts your child. Not the a-hole. You are correct. They are just nasty little bullies picking on children. What normal human would belittle a child's attempt to perform for them? I know 3 people who never need to darken your door again. It was how they always were. Anything I did while growing up was picked at or laughed at. I couldn't let my daughter feel how I did. The world is only as cruel as the people you're with. You're making the cruelty they're supposedly preparing her for. I'm really happy for you that you recognized what was happening and stood up for your daughter.
Am I the a-hole for contaminating honey with peanut butter and not telling my peanut allergic housemate? Yeah, this sounds bad, but hear me out. I live with a fake name who's allergic to peanuts. He says it's fine if I eat them around him, but be careful with cross-contamination. I limit my peanut consumption. Don't eat peanuts food around him just in case, and I'm careful when I do. I clean everything after. I don't want to take any risks because it's not my risk to make. 2 years and not a problem, until last week. I have a doting mother who loves giving fancy gifts. Like my Easter basket this year, which had not much in the way of chocolate, but much in the way of homemade preserves, and a jar of honey. Not your supermarket plastic tub, but a proper glass jar. It looked so fancy I expected to see the names of the bees listed on it. Nope, just the location the bees lived in. Now, we have some food rules. Bottle of milk in the fridge. Ours. The fancy honey with my name stuck on it for good measure. Mine. We're pretty good with not stealing each other's food, so I feel pretty safe with leaving fancy stuff in the kitchen. Only I don't have much opportunity to eat fancy honey. I mean, pretty sure you're meant to do something special with fancy honey, right? Probably, but I don't know what. So last week, when I made myself some toast, I made a childhood favorite. Peanut butter and honey on toast. And because it was my honey with my name taped across the top, I don't think twice before dipping that peanut butter knife in my fancy honey. Probably a waste of fancy honey, but we were out of regular honey. After, I washed the knife and plate before putting them into the dishwasher and wiped down the bench just in case. I wasn't home a couple of days later when fake name decided to help himself to my honey. Now, following a hospital trip, he's home safe and we've had a chat about how to prevent such things in the future, but the question has arisen. Who here is the a-hole? Me for not writing contains nuts on the contaminated honey despite knowing my fake name is allergic? Or fake name for looking at my fancy honey and deciding to help himself to just a little bit? I mean, it's pretty annoying to have someone else eat your food, but the punishment shouldn't be a potential death sentence. And let's face it, who hasn't swiped just a little bit of a spread or condiment which doesn't belong to them? And time to fess up here, I'm the reason we were out of regular honey. We can't decide, so tell me Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. This never would have happened if your roommate hadn't helped himself to your food without asking. This is all on him. Just a quick, hey, can I have a bit of your fancy honey? Would have prevented this entire situation, as you obviously would have told him, nah bro, I double-dipped a peanut butter knife in that. Ask before you help yourself to other people's things. If I was OP, I would straight up tell him not to touch any of my foods or condiments going forward. But the roommate sounds like he is not the type to take personal responsibility for himself and blames other people for his mistakes. I would dare to say he would probably be quick to pursue a lawsuit if he suffered severe injuries. Don't let him misconstrue your past generosity as an open-door policy of helping himself. Explicitly tell him no. I don't know. It sounds more like this is a friendly debate they're having here than that he is about to call his lawyers. But maybe I'm getting the tone wrong. Not a-hole. Your roommate learned to leave other people's things alone. When you're highly allergic to foods, you only eat things you know are safe. If he hadn't been eating something that didn't belong to him, he would have been fine. Exactly. Not a-hole. With allergies, your roommate should have been more careful and only use stuff he knew was his. Not a-hole. He knows and has approved you eating peanut products in the house. Therefore, he knows there's a risk of cross-contamination with your foods. Something clearly labeled as yours is therefore not guaranteed safe. and the onus is on him to check with you around cross-contamination before helping himself to it. It's not unreasonable for him to have a bit. It's unreasonable, and therefore he's the a-hole, to blame you for his emergency when you had already taken steps to make it clear this was for you only. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my neighbor's kids good food? So, I know that this is really stupid, but some of my friends told me that I'm in the wrong here. To get started, here's our cast. Me, female 38, neighbor female 32, my husband, male 39, kid 1, male 8, kid 2, male 7, my kid, female 8. My neighbor moved in not too long ago with her 2 sons. Seeing that she had a lot of unpacking to do, I went over to her house and offered to babysit her kids for her. She thanked me and walked her kids over to my house. I kept some of my son's toys from when he was younger, he has moved out already, and set them up in my yard. My daughter is fairly extroverted and immediately went outside to play with them. It was around noon at the time, so I started to make lunch. I made some turkey sandwiches with American cheese, a simple lunch that we always have. I brought out some plates so that the kids could eat outside on our benches. The kids loved it, and 30 minutes later the sandwiches were gone and they were back playing soccer and tag. A few hours later, the neighbor's kids and my child marched inside and sat down, tired. I put on some cartoons and told them I would be right back as I left to go get the neighbor to pick up her children. She looked tired, but was happy that she didn't have to deal with little boys running around while she unpacked. She came over and took her boys. By this time, my husband was parking in our driveway, home from work. My daughter had a fun time telling her father all about her day while I ordered pizza on my phone. About 5 minutes later, while I was still asking what everyone wanted, I hear a knock on my door. It was the neighbor. I thought she was going to thank me again, but she got angry and shouted at me. The following is some basic dialogue from what I can remember, though this did happen a few weeks ago. Me. Oh, hey neighbor. Neighbor, look, we need to talk right now. Me? Oh, sure. What do you need? Neighbor, well, my sons told me that you gave them sandwiches for lunch. Me, yes, I did. They really Neighbor, well, that is not enough for my boys. They're growing boys, and they need to have good food, and not whatever you gave them. Me, really? Neighbor, yes. Me, no. And I shut the door in her face. My daughter didn't really hear any of our conversation, but she asked me. I just told her that the neighbor didn't like sandwiches. She didn't bother to ask further and watched some shows in her room. My husband just laughed, and so did I. The lady got mad that I fed food to her sons for free, right? But as it turns out, 3 of my close friends told me that I was rude and I should have just given them something better. We had mashed potatoes and some leftover pork that wouldn't take more than 29 minutes to heat up and serve, but I didn't feel like giving them that. I don't see the problem with what I did, but I trust my friends and I want to know if I should apologize. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I feel like an absurd number of people ate a turkey sandwich for lunch today, and they're probably going to continue with their lives happily. No good deed goes unpunished, I guess. Hope she doesn't ever need a neighbor to babysit in a jam. I know I did. It was delicious. I made my kids grilled cheese for lunch. Am I going to hell? 20 years from now, when those kids are doing hard time in the penitentiary, it's all going to trace back to that goddamn turkey sandwich. You might be onto something here. Statistically speaking, probably a lot of people currently incarcerated in the US have had a turkey sandwich. Day after Thanksgiving is the worst for crime. That's why it's called Black Friday. Not day hall. I thought the issue was going to be allergy or religion related. I do think you should have confirmed with your neighbor about the food because that easily could have become a disaster. That being said, I don't know why a turkey sandwich is bad or why your neighbor and friends think they needed something better. I think if you have children with food allergies and you drop them off with a brand new neighbor you've never even met before so you can unpack, you should absolutely be telling this person about your children's allergies, not expecting them to come back and ask what's okay to serve for lunch. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my roommate I'm no longer okay with her boyfriend staying 5 to 7 nights a week? I've been living with my roommate, ex-best friend, since last August. When we signed the lease, I told her that moving in with one roommate, her, was already a big compromise for me as I really value my alone time and having a safe and quiet place. We discussed her boyfriend coming over a couple times a week. At the time it was on the weekends and once during the week, and that includes staying the night. And even that agreement was excessive for me, but I was willing to work with it. Since then, her boyfriend has been over 5+ nights a week every single week. In the last 10 days, he has been back at his own house one time. He showers here, does his laundry here, eats food here. I tried so hard to bite my tongue because my roommate was my best friend for a long time, but she completely disrespected my boundaries. I asked her a few months back if he could be here less because I was having a hard time settling into my apartment on the weekends because I never had space to utilize common areas without him just being there all the time. She flipped out and told me I have no right to determine how often he's here. Last night, I lost my cool and texted her, asking if he moved in without me knowing because it had been that long since I last had a night without him here. She said no and persisted that it wasn't my business. He is loud and messy and doesn't pay a dime to live here when he already lives at his parents' house for free. We're in our mid-20s, not even 19 or early 20s. Am I the a-hole for standing my ground and asking, as the other person who pays the bills, that he be here less frequently than 5 to 7 nights a week? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She has basically moved him in without your or your landlord's permission. He pays no rent or utilities and is loud. If she refuses to either have him move out again or pay his part of the rent, etc., you might approach the landlord. You're usually obliged to get a landlord's permission before moving in an extra person. OP should really just start looking for their own place, because I don't see the roommates making nice if they are ex-friends. Agreed. If they complain to the landlord, he might agree to release them from the lease early, or kick the roommates out. That's how I'd approach it at least. Not a-hole. If he's not contributing to the house while using all the utilities and food, that's a huge problem in itself. Also, you're entitled to have your house to yourself sometimes. I would tell her she either sticks to your original agreements or you're telling the landlord. Bringing the landlord in may create as much trouble for OP as it does for the others. If the landlord decides to evict, OP is getting evicted too. OP is quite possibly in violation of their lease right now. Not the a-hole. She flipped out and told me I have no right to determine how often he's here. That's where she's wrong. Is his name on the lease? Rhetorical question. I see it's not. I'd start looking for another roommate ASAP. In the meantime, I'd approach the landlord/leasing office and inform them that your roommate has basically moved someone into your place despite your objection. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for assuming I wouldn't have to pay rent? Around 7 years ago, a very good friend of mine moved away to a different country and sold me her house. She met this guy there and had a baby. 2 years after moving there and having the baby, her and her husband wanted to move back here to expand their family. She asked if she could stay with me in a spare room while she saved up some money to purchase a home. I happily said yes, since she was kind enough to let me buy her home for less, and she was also one of my bestest friends. So, I let them move into the basement, rent-free, because I know they needed more space than just a room with a toddler. My boyfriend runs his own business, and he employed her while she was trying to get a job, and he was only paying her like $200 cash weekly, and he didn't really need someone anyway, so it was just something temporary. The basement didn't have a kitchen, so they would come up to cook and eat, and I gave them access towards all my food. She would also buy groceries and told us that it's for all of us to share. I knew her husband had money and was retired, but still receiving money on a monthly basis from his country. I guess equivalent to a pension? But I have clue as to what that amount was. But he did not work while he was here. She's also decently wealthy, and we would constantly go shopping together and out to eat, and she would spend a good amount of money. She ended up staying for 4 years, which is longer than anticipated, and during that time, we talked about adding a bathroom for them, and her husband offered to do the work, so we didn't have to hire a company. We paid to add a bathroom, kitchen, and separate the empty floor plan to 2 bedrooms. This was mostly for their convenience, but we were planning on doing something along those lines in the future. She also stayed working for my boyfriend for the $200 weekly, even after we all found some jobs she qualified for. She now owns her own house and is renting out the second floor. My boyfriend and I are in the process of buying a new home and completely renovating it and want to sell our current home ASAP. But we have to rent out somewhere to stay for a few months. We asked if we can stay in her unfinished basement, when she then informed us that the people living in the second floor have moved out and offered for us to stay there instead. My boyfriend and I were ecstatic and agreed and sold our house and have to move out in 2 weeks. We all met up for dinner this weekend and she tells us how much our rent should be. I explained to her that we weren't planning on paying rent and why she didn't tell us about it sooner, and she asked why we assumed it would be free. In all honesty, I can afford rent, and it is cheaper than an Airbnb, but I just felt that after what we did for them, it should have been free. Let me know. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They lived rent-free for 4 years and can't let you crash for a couple of weeks? That's really crappy. At hazard, she only offered you the second floor for that very reason. I'd go stay in a hotel and avoid giving them your money if they can't see reason. Added to add, maybe present them with what their rent would have been had you charged them what they want to charge you. Obviously, you can't go back on this and ask for it, but maybe it will put into perspective just how much they saved. Thank you so much for the input. My boyfriend and I are currently looking for other options. Feel kind of weird for being like, this is how much you were to owe me if I wasn't such a nice person, because I didn't do it expecting anything in return. Not a-hole. Please, examine your relationship with this fair-weather friend. I mean, you could mention that you thought it would be free, as you did let her live in yours for 4 years, and renovated it for her without so much as charging her a cent. Which is why you didn't think that you would have to pay rent. She'll probably be mortified to reveal a different color to that you have seen. I know. I valued our friendship so much, and when I did a favor, I always thought she'd do the same for me. Well, I guess I was wrong about that. Very obviously not an a-hole. It's a simple tit-for-tat situation. You could have been making money from that basement for 4 years, but instead chose to let your friend live rent-free there out of the kindness of your own heart. I would kill to have friends as generous as you, Opie. From what you've established about their financial situation, she doesn't need to rent money. If that's the case, there's no reason why they can't pay you back for your years of generosity by letting you live rent-free for a few months. Given the fact that she overstayed her welcome, maybe she's worried you'll do the same to her, and that's why she wants to implement some kind of financial control here. Thank you so much. I feel extremely betrayed by her, and I've never felt that before because she's always been equally as generous except this situation, which is why this is so hard for me to process.
Am I the a-hole for telling my son that if he doesn't want to work, he doesn't get the benefits of my labor? My son, 21 male, dropped out of college at the end of his last semester in December. His grades had been failing for almost a year and a half, so it was pretty much either drop out or get kicked out. My wife and I had paid for his first 2 years completely and given him extra spending money each month so that he could concentrate on school instead of having to work. We also made him sign up with a school counselor and got him a therapist about 18 months ago because we were worried his mental health could be a contributing factor. We later found out that he had been skipping counseling and therapy sessions and skipping a lot of classes. We had a conversation about it with him, and he went on a rant about how he doesn't want to spend 40 to 50 years of his life toiling away at some job he doesn't like in order to make some boss more money. He said that work is just a social construct designed to keep the masses down, and that humans aren't designed to sit in a cubicle for 40 hours a week then die. When my son told my wife and I that he dropped out, my wife immediately allowed him to come back home. That was about 3 months ago. Since then, all he does is sit on his computer. He's maybe left the house a dozen times. He refuses to get a job and tells us that his plan is to live the van life. I worked a union blue-collar job for years to support my family, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let my son crap all over my hard work. A couple weeks ago, I got home from work exhausted and he made a remark about me breaking my back for the man. I told him that my job gave him the opportunity to go to college and he chose to squander it. It turned into a fight where I let out a lot of frustration on him. I told him he either gets a job or he no longer gets to take advantage of my hard work since he seems to think so little of it. I told him I would remove him from our family phone plan, cancel our internet, no longer let him eat our food, and give him a tent so that he can sleep in the backyard. He yelled at me that I'm being an a-hole, and that those are basic human necessities, and I can't deprive him of those. I told him that if he needs those things, then he can freaking work for them like the rest of us, or go find a van and get out. He hasn't spoken to me since, but my wife says I was too hard on him and that this transition has obviously been difficult for him. I told her I am tired of coddling him, and I will not allow him to blatantly disrespect me in my own house, while also taking advantage of all the things I have worked hard to give him. Now, my wife is upset with me too, because she thinks I'm being unreasonable to expect our son to at least do something with his life to contribute if he is going to stay with us. At this point, I don't care if he lives in the backyard and makes a little garden back there to grow his own food. At least that would show some initiative on his part. Now for the top comments. Not stay home. He needs to grow up. Some folks, growing up happens easy. Some folks, it happens hard. Ideals are fantastic, but you can't eat them. Not stay home. Well, these basic human necessities don't look like a social construct now, do they? It's one thing to screw over an awful employer or a biased legal system, or to just freaking hate the necessity of what the economics of specialization have driven us to. It's a whole other thing to screw over your parents. Not stay home. If he wants to embrace the van life, he needs to leave and find a van life. Otherwise, he is as bad as a boss profiteering off someone else's labor. His ideals aren't wrong, but his actions and expectations are. You have worked hard to afford him these privileges, and so are entitled to withdraw them if you feel he isn't earning them. He has reached adulthood, and by your account, you've given him all. He also needs to know most van lifers work. Some of them work a lot. But they put stuff on YouTube and have 1 million subscribers. That's so easy. I can do that. Lol, one of my favorite van lifers YouTube. And have been super upfront in what it's taken to get to where they are. Just years and years of work. And they kept their jobs for a very long time when they started out. Not stay home. I have a couple comments here. Your wife is his enabler. He feels comfortable being so free from the man because he knows he has a safety net. Secondly, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can give him all the tools, counseling and opportunities to go to college, but if he doesn't want to, he won't do well. Finally, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. Perhaps the best thing you can do is kick him out so that he doesn't have the luxury to be so idealistic. Maybe he will get a taste of independence and the reward of doing things for himself. Next story. Am I the a-hole for thinking my daughter shouldn't pay rent? I have been a stay-at-home mom my whole marriage. My husband pays the bills. I keep house and raise my little ones. I also do things like money management and our taxes because I have an accounting degree. My oldest daughter calls me because she just recently moved in with her fiancé, and he told her she has to pay half of rent and utilities. He makes a lot more than her because she's working part-time, so she has time to plan her dream wedding. Both his parents work, and I know his mom makes more than his dad. My daughter is Sarah, 24, and I was thrown back when she realized she had to split all of the bills in the marriage and pay for things like her wedding dress. It's put a damper in our wedding planning. I tried talking to her fiancé, Luke, 32, saying his family situation was unique since his mom was making more. He rebuffed me, saying it's unrealistic to think he would work, and Sarah could just spend all of her free time wedding planning. He said she has a degree, and she should get a full-time job. Sarah and him both went to school for accounting, and that's how he met her, was at her internship. He works about 60 hours a week, and I explained that with wedding planning, asking her to work that much is way too much on a girl her age. His mother is feeding him the new wave feminism, and I don't think it's a good life balance for this young couple. His mom is feeding my daughter that in this world, you have to work hard and have tough love for your kids. Sarah called crying because her mother-in-law yelled at her for being a gold digger, and Sarah has moved back in with her best friend. My daughter is saying I gave her bad advice and now Luke wants to call off the wedding and wants his ring back. She's blaming it on me, but I think Luke shouldn't have asked my daughter to pay half of his bills on top of wedding planning. You're the a-hole as you gave terrible advice. Your wedding is not a valid excuse to not work, and plenty of people her age work those sort of hours. I'm not surprised that he called off the wedding, as no one in their right mind would want to deal with someone who acts so entitled. Exactly. The way Opie said his mom is feeding him the new wave of feminism literally says a lot about Opie. He is the one that isn't a good balance for any couple. And Opie, yes, in this world you gotta work to earn money in order to live. You can't just mooch off another. There is no more blue is for boys and pink is for girls. Your daughter is capable enough to get a job and support herself. And if she continues to listen to your terrible advice, she'll probably end up alone. And if your daughter can't handle a job and wedding planning at the age of 25, she ain't ready for having kids or getting married either. You're the a-hole. Too much for a girl her age? What are you implying? She's too young to take on the responsibilities? If that's the case, then she shouldn't be getting married in the first place. That line cracked me up. She's 24, not 14. And shocking though it may be to Opie, plenty of women work full-time and plan weddings at the same time. It's put a damper on our wedding planning. May have been a slip of the tongue, but it said everything. This isn't your wedding. This isn't your marriage. Their family dynamics are not yours. You're asking them to go by your lifestyle, not develop their own. If your daughter is living with Luke, it's not solely Luke's rent. Let's go ready. You're the a-hole. She needs to work full-time. I genuinely can't comprehend having the mindset that I need to work part-time so I can plan this party. What? Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for sitting back and doing nothing when mom told my wife that she'd take us to court for grandparents' right? This situation is a bit of a mess. I'll just mention the relevant conflict at hand. So, my wife Liz and I have been married for 7 years. We have preschool-aged kids, and because we currently live in the same city as my parents, mom would take the kids while my wife and I work. Liz is the one with a much larger income, and she got an even better job opportunity that is requiring us to move to another city. I agreed, since I could easily find a job in my field in the city we're moving to. But after my family heard we were selling the house to move, hell broke loose. Sunday, Mom and Liz got into a huge fight because Liz told Mom we'll move away and hire a babysitter for the kids so she's no longer needed. Mom said she doesn't want her grandkids moving away. Even said we should let the kids live at her house while we move. Liz laughed at her and Mom lost it, basically saying that Liz was an ungrateful witch and that her grandkids moving will only happen over her dead body. They began exchanging harsher words, and Liz snapped and told Mom to butt out of private matters that don't concern her, and said that she had no right to decide things regarding the kids. Mom firmly told her she was dead wrong, and proceeded to tell her that she, as an involved grandmother, knows her rights and she will be taking Liz and me to court to ensure she still gets to see her grandkids. Liz was in shock. She looked to the left and saw me sitting there not saying or doing anything. She told me to check my mom, but I told her she was being unfair to Mom, and that Mom had to feel upset because she will no longer be able to see her grandchildren. I honestly told Liz that she was a bit selfish to not consider my mom's feelings and her crucial presence in kids' life first. Liz started arguing with me, saying she couldn't believe I didn't stand behind her and defend her after hearing Mom saying she'd get the court involved. I said Mom was upset and cannot be blamed for her reaction. Liz started yelling at me, calling me unsupportive and an enabler, then went home with the kids, insisting my family is my problem and I should handle it. Although this whole moving thing was her idea. Situation hasn't been resolved and Liz and Mom are getting more intense in their fights. I choose to stay out of it because both have valid arguments. But Liz has called me awful for not siding with her after seeing how Mom spoke to her, and being okay with the fact that Mom was willing to cause us issues in court. Am I the a-hole? I get that Liz wants my support, but I feel like Mom has been punished through no fault of her own after being a loving grandmother to my kids. Now for the comments. You're the a-hole. Your mom threatened to take your family to court so she can get custody of the kids, and she wants them to live with her. That is a disproportionate reaction to being told that someone is moving. Are you okay with moving to a new city? Sounds like you are. Why would you ever let anyone threaten your wife with court for doing something incredibly beneficial for your family? Why would you let someone threaten you instead of offering to get on a plane to see you? You're the a-hole. Your mom is threatening your family, and she could very well actually gain custody of the kids depending on how much and how long she takes care of them for. OMG, you're the a-hole OP. Your wife and children should be your first priority always, not your mother's feelings over moving. Insisting my family is my problem, but I should handle it, although this whole moving thing was her idea. It may have been her idea, but you agreed to it. If you had an issue with moving, you should have had that conversation with your wife. Agreeing with it to your wife's face and then letting your mom do the dirty work of fighting her about it is cowardly and passive-aggressive. The fact that you are continuing to sit there like a bump on a log while your relatives harass your wife is failing hardcore as a spouse. Get your mother out of your marriage or you won't have a marriage. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. You married and had kids with Liz, not your mother. Are you really okay with your mom threatening to take your children? No, I'm not. But I do get that she was upset and probably didn't mean what she said in the moment of rage. But I told Liz that it's better that we solve this peacefully and try to get on my mom's good side by maybe reaching a compromise, though mom is completely against moving away. Why does your wife need to compromise when your mom is the one that escalated the threatening to sue you? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling out my husband's favoritism? My husband Tom, 37 male, and I, 33 female, have been married for 7 years, and we have 2 kids. Sammy, 3, Nora, 5. He was married before me, and had a son, Teddy, who passed on from chronic illness at 4. So far, our family has been pretty stable, meaning no fights or disagreements. Though I have complaints about some things Tom does. This might sound insensitive, but it treats Teddy different than our kids. Like he has a ton of framed pictures of Teddy on his office wall and desk, but none for our kids. He also has pillows and blankets with Teddy's name on them while not doing the same for Sammy and Nora. His argument was that this is his only way of showing love and remembering Teddy since he can't see or touch him. While Sammy and Nora are here and he shows them affection in a physical form like doing bonding activities and such. We kind of moved on from this issue until I accidentally came across a whole journal he has that was dedicated to Teddy. I'd read some of what was written, and it had details of some moments in Teddy's life. I felt sad for 2 reasons. 1, because of how much heartache Tom had experienced, and 2, the fact that he never thought of writing about his special moments with Sammy and Nora. I gently brought it up to him, and he got upset and tried to say the same thing about how he adores all 3 children, but in different ways. I said it still hurts because while Sammy and Nora are still young, what if they come across something like that when they're older, and realize that Dad didn't love them as much as his eldest kid? I said this reek of favoritism. But he said we weren't even having this conversation, nor should I have called him out on his alleged favoritism, after I disrespected his privacy and read his private thoughts. I argued that it is what it is, and he should start considering including the kids now, and not wait till they're, God forbid, gone to show them love. He said I should be ashamed of myself for implying he doesn't love his young children and for making him guilty only because he suffered a tragedy, and was finally at peace with it. I said I was sorry he felt this way, but he told me to stop talking and leave the room. I walked out and he started crying. The kids then entered the room and started comforting him. So far, we haven't been on good terms. I keep trying to stay calm and collected, but he's being cold towards me, making me feel like I'm at fault here. I want to know if I am the a-hole? You're the a-hole. What is wrong with you? Calm down. The guy lost one of his kids. That child is literally not here anymore. Pictures and a journal is his way of coping with sadness. It does not mean he loves your kids less or favors Teddy over them. Teddy is dead. Take a step back and just stop being so self-centered. Unless he ignores his other 2 children completely, you are so out of line and instead of being supportive, you are being a nay. So I agree that Opie is the a-hole, but I do wonder what his other two kids are gonna think when all they see is Teddy and not them in Daddy's life. That doesn't excuse Opie in any way at all. I just want the poor guy to make sure that he's dealing with everything in a safe and healthy way. My heart breaks for him. You're the a-hole and huge. My God, how can you not understand and let the man grieve and process this grief in any way, shape, or form he needs to? Teddy's gone. You don't have to make some sort of fake competition for receiving love from your husband. Read a book about losing a child or something so that you can help the man instead of making his trauma worse. Unfortunately, yes, it may be worth updating knowledge on grievance and jealousy OP. Also, it's likely OP is now pushing the husband away. Why would he want to be with a woman that can't properly respect his privacy and past? I would apologize, buy him something to say sorry, and change how you are acting.
Am I the a-hole for telling my friend that my sister cheated on her ex and he totally lost interest? My 25 male, 23-year-old sister Katie just moved to the same city I live in, which is not our hometown. We get along pretty well, but something that's always kinda annoyed me about her is, since high school she loves to latch onto my social group and has dated a couple of my friends. It always makes things awkward for me and the friendship inevitably changes. So typically, I refrain from introducing her to my friend group. But since she doesn't really know many people in our city, I invited her to a recent outing with my friends for my birthday. I got a buddy out called Dan, who is somewhat recently single. Unfortunately, his ex cheated on him on a girl's trip and the breakup was awful, and he still has some trust issues from it. I know that Katie and her college ex from a couple years ago broke up because she hooked up with another guy when she visited her friend at another school. She knows how I feel about it and says she feels awful and wishes she could take it back. Well, anyway, at the hangout, Dan and Katie were talking quite a bit and Katie gave him her number. He asked me if it was cool if he asked her out or if that would make things too weird. I basically told him I appreciate him asking, but he doesn't need my permission. That said, I told him about her past because I know how he feels about cheating. That was a deal breaker for him. He started to say some not nice stuff, but then stopped when he realized it was my sister, lol. But needless to say, he lost interest then and there. They ran into each other the other day, and while I wasn't there, I heard it was pretty awkward. I guess she playfully teased him about not texting her yet, and he just gave her an awkward answer about being super busy. She asked me about it, telling me how much she thought they hit it off and everything when I was honest with her about what happened. Dan's one of my good friends, and I felt like I had to give him warning. But Katie got mad. She said a lot of things to me about being a horrible brother and not letting her move on from the past and all that. Since then, been having some second thoughts. Obviously can't take it back, but she does kind of have a point that it was a couple years ago, and she should be able to start fresh with new guys without the past coming up. But in the moment, I was just trying to protect my friend from potential heartbreak. I get both sides, I guess. Was I the a-hole here? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. And bro, just tell her to stop trying to hook up with your friends. Are you kidding? Exactly. They're OP's friends, not disposable, not a menu. How many friendships of hers would he have to ruin before she'd stop introducing him to hers? 1? Yes, she would have flipped out after the first girlfriend dumped her as a friend because of her brother's wrongdoings. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. It's not cool for your sister to repeatedly go after your friends. Seriously though, she had no problem finding a random guy to cheat with, so she shouldn't have any problem dating someone who's not her brother's friend. It is not even just one, it's a couple. She most likely doesn't care what happens after they break up because OP has to deal with the aftermath. A conversation needs to be had between them long time ago because she just can't be doing that so casually. I'm not surprised if she does continue to cheat with the way she just keeps dating his friends. She's not the only one at fault though. His friends also choose to date her too, unless OP was fine with it and didn't care. But either way, OP also needs to set boundaries with his friends that his sister is off limits and tell them her history of dating in his friend group. If they still go after her, then cut them loose. Not the a-hole. People can grow and move on, but it doesn't change the fact that they did it in the first place. If it was a deal breaker when you told him, it was going to be a deal breaker when he inevitably found out. You just saved them both a lot of time. Lol. Agreed. Being able to move on does not mean everyone has to pretend what happened never happened. It means that you accept that some people will not want to date you, or you may have to work a bit harder to earn trust. Keeping important details about your past is a terrible way to earn trust. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister's boyfriend the truth? My 24 female sister, 21 female, is saying I'm the a-hole for telling her now ex-boyfriend what she has really been doing behind his back. Some context, she has been living with me and my family for a couple of months. She and her boyfriend have been together for 8 months, and it's been kinda rocky to say the least. Soon after she moved in with us, she told me that her and her boyfriend were taking a break which lasted about 2 weeks or so, and during that time she had slept with 2 different guys. She never told her boyfriend about it. A couple weeks after they ended the break, I noticed she was talking and playing video games a lot with a guy she met on Snap. He was in another state, so there's no physical contact, but I could tell there was an emotional connection between them. Her boyfriend found out about this and questioned her, but she always told him that they were just gaming buddies. I heard him constantly telling her how beautiful she is and how he would take care of her. Soon, she was telling me that she was going to end things with her boyfriend, but she was going to get this gift from him first. It was a fancy water bottle or something. This is where I may be the a-hole. One day, when I knew she was going to be out of the house, I called her boyfriend and told him everything she had been lying about, and about her wanting to break up with him. I called her immediately after, calling her out on her lies and ended the relationship. Almost instantly, I was getting calls and messages from her and other family members, saying I was an a-hole for sticking my nose in their business. I fully believe I did the right thing, and I know if I was in his shoes, I'd want to know too. So am I the a-hole? Edit, to clear some things up, I did speak to her before going behind her back several times. Yet, she continued to treat it like a game. I'm not trying to get back at her or make myself feel better. Instead, I put myself in her ex's shoes and I know if I was in his position, I'd want to know. Not the a-hole. You saved your boyfriend years of heartache if you were to stay together with that thing. Good on you for telling him. I, for one, would want someone to tell me, especially if it's coming from her sister/family member. Ignore the people calling you jealous and asking why you would do something like that. They're all cheater sympathizers. The ones who are jealous are just cheaters. LMAO. Agreed. Not the a-hole. You did the right thing by telling him. You would have been more hurt to know you were aware and chose to not tell him because she's your sister. I am speaking from experience. In the last few months of my relationship with my ex, he was cheating on me with another girl. At that time, they were in different countries, so nothing physical happened. But they were already in a relationship and planning their future, like things they want to do when they meet, meeting each other's families, etc. That spineless coward did not even have the decency to end it with me first, after being in a relationship with me for 6 years. He was waiting for me to end it, as our relationship was already very rocky at that time due to family issues. We were from different religions. Our families were not on board, and his family wanted me to convert to their religion, which I was completely against. After we broke up, we agreed to be roommates for a little while till one of us could find a separate place. We were new in the city and did not know anyone else yet. I found out about his new relationship by accident. One day, 2 months after we broke up, I walked into his room to ask him something that he didn't hear me calling from the outside. He was on a video chat with his girl. I immediately felt uncomfortable and left. Then he disclosed that he's seeing someone new. Not gonna lie, I was hurt, but put up a brave face at that moment. But one detail he shared made me start to question things. He mentioned they're planning to visit each other's families when they meet. Knowing him, he would never do that unless he was very sure about someone. Some poking and prodding later, he divulged he had been talking to her even before we broke up. He didn't clarify, but I was able to conclude this continued for at least 6 months while we were still together. My heart was shattered, even more so when I found out all his close friends knew and no one bothered to tell me. When I questioned them, their excuse was, well, you know how he's so private about everything in his life and does not want anyone to talk about his personal life. I used to consider them my friends as well, but not anymore. We are still in touch, wish each other's on birthdays, etc., but I keep them at an arm's length. I felt betrayed from all fronts, and it took me a very long time to get over that. So, I would have greatly appreciated it if one of his friends had told me about this, so I didn't waste months of time with him. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I told my younger sister's fiancé that she lied about my older sister when they met? My older sister Kay, female 32, my younger sister Jay, female 28, my younger sister's fiancé Matt, male 32. Kay and Matt met at work about 2.5 to 3 years ago. He was hired in as a consultant at her company on a few months assignment. They became close, but nothing happened because they probably didn't think it was professional. I think both, or I know that my sister at least, was hoping that it would develop to something more when his assignment was completed. Kay is a very shy and private person, but even with that, she couldn't stop talking about Matt to Jay and me. When she turned 30, we encouraged her to invite him too, with the rest of her close friends from work. She was very hesitant and panicked at first, but then she thought, yeah, why not? His assignment was almost done anyway. Matt and Jay met at that party. 6 months later, Jay told us that she and Matt are a couple. This devastated Kay, and I knew that, even if she held herself together and pretended to be happy for them. I almost made her confess her heartbreak to me because I couldn't just let her hurt alone without any support. She said that she's angry or disappointed. That after her birthday, he changes towards her and was even a bit angry. Then when he left, he stopped talking to her. Kate said that she probably misinterpreted his interest in her. I know that she's still heartbroken about it. Matt was assigned with her company some more times again, and it was awkward at first, but eventually they were friends again. Now he is a part of the family. Kay never showed that she's hurt. Now I found out that Jay told Matt that Kay had a boyfriend at that birthday party. Matt is very handsome and lovely, and Jay basically wanted him. Matt was shocked at first because he was hoping for something more, but he probably just thought that he too misinterpreted Kay's interest in him. He is very shy too. After the party, he probably decided to cut his losses and not pursue Kay. Jay, however, kept contacting him, asking him out, be supportive. First, he refused, but then they started dating. How do I know all that? Jay's roommate spilled the beans to me, thinking I knew everything, as I'm closer to Jay than Kay. Matt has now proposed to Jay. I feel sick because I want to tell Matt what happened so he makes an informed decision. Marriage is not a game. At the same time, he and Jay seem to be perfect for each other and the love is genuine. Maybe he was interested in Kay, yes, but obviously it wasn't that deep. Also Kay, I want to tell her, but she seems okay with the relationship too. She made it clear that Matt and Jay obviously meant to be or it wouldn't have happened. But I want to tell. Would I be the a-hole if I told everyone what happened? Now for the top comments. Wow, sister is something. She certainly didn't consider anyone else when she made her decisions back then. I would probably say something so he can make an informed decision, but be prepared for the backlash. The thing is, Jay and Matt are great together. He and Kay are so much alike, yes, both shy and introverted and very calm. But Jay's a social butterfly, and he has even said that she has taken him out of his shell, so I don't know. My only thought is, I would have wanted to know. But if I tell, I'm ready for the backlash. You should tell. Jay stole Matt's choice from him. Everything they have built is based on a lie. She didn't just tell that lie once. She told it repeatedly. She faked sympathy and comfort him. She manufactured the entire origins of their relationship. If Jay has deceived him in this way, I guarantee she has deceived him in others. Her behavior was foul and selfish. She didn't care who she hurt as long as she got what she wanted. How many other times has she hurt him to get what she wants? If their Matt and Jay's love is real, they will get over it. If it's not, and I don't see how it can be when it's built on sand, please let this man have the opportunity to escape before Jay tricks him into marriage. There's zero chance that Matt and Kay would be together, and that is not the point either. I want my big sister's heart to heal and Matt to make an informed decision. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling coworker her kid is why I wouldn't date her? Disclaimer. This isn't one of those anti-dating single moms posts. I'm a single dad and have dated other single parents in the past. I have a coworker, let's call Pam, who I've worked with a couple years now, and she's a lovely woman. She's very pretty, good at her job, and I value her as both a coworker and a friend. She got divorced about a year ago and has started getting back into dating in the last few months. Nothing serious though. I'm widowed and have a 7-year-old. I'm definitely not opposed to dating another single parent, as I have before. Problem is, her kid is honestly unbearable to me. It's hard to say how much is his fault, as he does have ODD, and I suspect some other things as well. He's 13 years old but regularly throws tantrums you'd expect of a much younger child. He's been suspended from school multiple times, and she has had to have him come into work with her to keep an eye on him, and he always gets into trouble here as well. As far as non-predators go, he's the worst kid I've ever been around. About a month ago, we were at a work function lately and dating came up, and she asked me if I was seeing anybody. I told her no, and she brought up us going out as we get along so well. I gave her the whole "we work together and I don't crap where I eat" thing, and she let it go, but mentioned how a lot of our coworkers met at work and it worked out for them. For what it's worth, we were in different departments, so we work on different floors. So while I see her at work a decent amount, it's not really a working together and seeing each other everyday thing. The last week, the weather has been beautiful, and yesterday management let us all off an hour early to enjoy the weather, and a lot of us went to the place next door. She brought us up again and again. I gave her the same thing. She then pushed and said she doesn't believe me. She asked if I don't like to date other parents, and I told her no, it's not that. She kept pushing, and I was honest that her kid is just too much. Not that I don't think I could handle a tough kid, but I just have no desire to put up with that for a kid who's not mine. From what little I know about ODD, it doesn't seem like a phase, and I'm not signing me and my kid up to deal with that long term. Let's just say she did not take it well and snapped at me about talking about her kid and left shortly after. Today I'm working from home but feeling a little guilty about it all. Was I an a-hole who should apologize or just let it go? Frankly, her aggressive investigation of why you wouldn't date her was inappropriate in the first place. No one is entitled to an explanation as to why you don't want to date them. You could have refused, but she was so pushy. I don't think she would have accepted it. She's going to think less of you though. It's probably not either her fault nor her son's fault that he's like this. Yeah, I don't blame her for her son. I think it's a brain chemistry thing. It's just not something I would sign myself or my kid up to deal with. Please shoot HR an email about the interaction just to be safe. Yeah, our HR director and president of the company are two of my childhood best friends, so I'm not worried, but I shot the HR guy a note just in case. He's documenting it, but won't bring it up unless she does. She's a good employee overall, and we know she's been through a lot in the last years, so we're not trying to get her in trouble, but we are documenting to cover ourselves in case. That's nice of you to consider. Hopefully she'll let it go. I'm sure on some level she knows it's about her kid. It's hard enough dating with the kids involved, and having extreme circumstances makes it even more challenging. The fact that you're already a parent means that it's important for you to consider your child's well-being and safety in introducing potential permanent people in their life. Please always keep that priority. Her hurt feelings are not your fault, and it might be the reality that she needed to hear out loud from someone. She has a few more years before he's an adult. She can still have a relationship, but should leave her kid out of it, assuming she has a co-parenting partner. It sounds like her child is going to have problems in adulthood. Anyone that dates her has to know about her child.